What do you say, everybody? Mick Gillispie here with you on the BamaInsider YouTube channel. We're going to talk about the football game. Obviously, a classic game, but one that did not go Alabama's way. The Crimson Tide lose in overtime to LSU. The Tigers go for two. Both teams scored a touchdown. They get it. Alabama looked confused on the 2-point play at the end of the game. They had a guy trying to get off the field, and another really tough loss. Another, game where Alabama played in a tough road environment and struggled. And this one, pretty much ends Alabama's hopes to get to a national championship this year. But I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear what you guys thought about the game. Let me remind you, though, that as you hang out with us on the BamaInsider YouTube channel, like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up as you talk to us tonight from wherever you might be calling from. And we really appreciate it. There's so many different things when you look at this game, and I'll get Chris to throw the stats up there too. Bryce Young didn't really have a lot of guys open. The wide receivers, again, struggling to just get some space between them and the defenders. It seemed like Bryce Young, part of the game tonight, trying to run for his life, but was able to do that. Gritty performance by Alabama, but just kind of typical of what this team is. I mean, this is the last 2 years we've seen this, where they get on the road and they just have a tough time. They're really affected by the crowd and the environment, and they lost to an LSU team that now is in position to go to Atlanta, and so Alabama kind of starting to really mirror the 2010 season for the Crimson Tide, where they have a really good team that just isn't figuring it out. Jahmyr Gibbs lost in this performance, was amazing. 15 carries, 99 yards. And then he caught the ball 8 times for 64 yards. That was really awesome. So, Bryce Young, 25 of 51, 328 yards. I thought they threw the ball too much. There's not a lot of creativity with the offensive game plan. Defense is kind of overrated. Let's call it what it is. And, there's some games left to be played, 3 left to go, and this team's going to have to figure something out. One thing that they won't have to worry about is playing in the college football playoff. So, that's kind of how things have gone, and it's a disappointment because they have so much talent on the team, and there's so many guys that are going to be in the NFL. But 2 losses in the conference, back-to-back road game losses, and I don't know. Let's hear what you guys have to say. And again, don't forget, our show is brought to you by Westgate Luxury Condominium, right there next to Bryant-Denny Stadium. WestgateAL.com, 1 to 5 bedroom units that are awesome. They got the oversized balconies. We usually do the post-game show at home. We do it from the Skygate Club on the roof there, and really is an awesome place. But right there next to the Walk of Champions, next to the Strip, next to Bryant-Denny, next to campus and all that stuff. All right, let's go to the phone lines and hear what you guys have to say. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Perry from Alabama.
What's up, Perry?
As much as I wanted, at times, we look at the players and how many defensive passing interferences we have this year. This game's got to be on the coordinators. The last 2 drives on defense, we're going straight man, no spy. When all week, Coach Saban's talking about can't let the quarterback beat us with his legs, and that's how we got beat. And then Bill O'Brien, Mississippi State showed the game plan: rush 3, drop back 8. They're just going to run 15-yard crossing routes over the middle of the field. No one's getting open, and Alabama won't run the ball. When Alabama finally started to run the ball in the second half, that's when you see the touchdowns, because there's actually a resemblance of balance.
Yeah, look,
it's just, I don't know what we have to do.
Well, let me say this. First off, in the first half, they spent most of the game, most of that first quarter and the second, part of the second quarter deep in LSU territory. And it was like Bill O'Brien refused to run the football. And then it's like second down and long, third down and long, punt, there's no creativity to the offense at all. It just isn't. This is a very boring vanilla offense. Let's call it what it is.
I'm at a football party, and it's like, once we got pinned back twice, and it's 6 straight passes basically, and they go, "Perry, what do you think is going to happen here?" I'm like, he's going to run the ball right, because that's all we run. We never run the ball left, and it's just run the ball right up. We didn't get anything. Pass. And it's almost like Bill O'Brien runs the ball just enough to say, "Hey, look, it's not working. Let's put the ball in Bryce's hands and let's hope he does some Houdini stuff." Because at the end of the day, that's what most of the times it happens. It's Houdini, Bryce bailing out Bill O'Brien. And until that gets fixed,
yeah,
I don't know what to do.
Well, there's no creativity though. I mean, you're in a league of where the rules are set up to benefit the offense, and we just don't really have a lot of creativity. I mean, it just isn't very creative, and we have enough talent where they can get down there and score, but this LSU team, let's be honest, they're not a good team. They're okay. They're not that good. But Pete Golding. That's the thing. Pete Golding. At the end of the day, you have all this talent, and he's had excuses for him. Young team, new starters. How many of these guys are returners? Majority of the defense? Right.
All week, you say all week, we're not going to let the quarterback beat us with his legs. Guess how you got beat in the last 2 drives?
Oh, how about the touchdown in overtime? Did they even get a hand on him?
No, but they're going man to man, and because they know Nick. And here's the thing: I don't know if this is Nick Saban or Pete Golding saying we're not going to go zone. Kirk Herbstreit said, I think it was on the final drive. He's like, "Where's the spy for Bama?" So I think at some point, hopefully this offseason, we see drastic changes with Golding and Bill O'Brien gone, because I think it's needed.
Yeah.
Georgia, look what Georgia did today.
Yeah.
Georgia made Tennessee look like a little league offense.
Right. I was wondering watching that game how we didn't get any. We didn't even touch Hendon Hooker. Not even. We didn't brush up against him. They were in his face the entire game.
I also think part of it is Tennessee's a different beast in Knoxville than they are on the road.
That's true
I think
too.
They finally got into a ruckus environment. Everyone's like, look what they did at LSU. LSU at night's a whole heck of a lot different than LSU at 11 a.m.
I know, but so what? It's a tough environment, and everything's kind of gone against Alabama this year. But a lot this game wasn't decided by officiating, and I'm going to tell you, the Tennessee game was. Whether people want to, tell me, and I'm crying about it or not, that was very suspicious officiating. The guys did a good job today. It wasn't, looking back at that game, Alabama didn't lose because of officiating.
At the end of the day, no one's going to want to say it. The first drive of the game for Alabama cost them.
Yeah, you're right.
If Bryce throws on the other shoulder, you're up 7. You win by 7 at the end of the game.
Yeah, or if somebody gets open,
throws it away.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you kick 3. Guess what? You're kicking a field goal to win the game.
Yeah, or there's a lot of that stuff. But you got to give LSU a lot of credit too. They made their fans made it a really hostile environment, which it was, and even with less talent, they were able to beat Alabama today. And they decided, Brian Kelly decided to go for 2 and to win. I thought Alabama was going to win the game in overtime. I kept waiting for a turnover. I'm still waiting for a turnover. I don't know how this defense doesn't get a turnover. Never.
They don't get consistent pressure, and then when they do get turnovers, it's DPI in the end zone. Today, what was that, the 5th or 6th time we've had DPI in the end zone? Although I think that ball should have probably been uncatchable. Yeah. But it's the 5th or 6th time, and I forget who calls in. It's like the defensive pass. I think it's going to cost Alabama. This team gets called for so many penalties, and I don't know why. Yeah, with so many returners when the team's never been this penalized. Every time they showed the pass interference penalties, you couldn't even argue with them. It was like, okay, it's not like the one at Tennessee where the guy's on the take probably, and he threw the flag, 30 yards after the play when it wasn't.
This time it's like guys are actually pulling down receivers and knocking them down. Eli Ricks on the one. I mean, I don't even know what he was doing. Sometimes it's okay. Maybe you're beat and you fall or something like that. But I don't know. This was one of those games, and LSU made mistakes too. They had some penalties on them as well.
Because I was looking. Because what I thought was pretty funny was they're talking about how Bryce Young was on a pitch count all week. He had 25 passes. I think that's what they said in practice every day. He threw the ball 24 times in the first half.
Yeah. Well, and I got to get to some other callers, Perry. I'm with you, man. And the other thing is, like, look, I get it. He's a Heisman Trophy winner and all that stuff. But you know what? It would be nice every once in a while to, like, have the guy that runs faster than anyone else maybe come in and run a wildcat offense or do something different. I mean, in 2009, Alabama won the national championship. They were creative. They didn't have the talent that this team has. They had some talent. I mean, they had, good players, but they didn't have top to bottom a roster like this, but they were just so much more creative. And I know it was a different era of football then. This is such a boring, it's just so boring, knowing, hey, we're going to throw it first down. We're going to throw it second down. We're going to throw it again on third down. I thought the first half play calling is why Alabama didn't win. So, hey, thanks for the call, Perry. Roll Tide, man.
You're welcome. Keep up the great work. Roll Tide.
Appreciate it, man. Good call. All right, let's go back to the phone lines again and talk about this game, 32-31. Overtime loss. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Man, it's Mike, man. Calling from Cali, man.
Hey, what's up, Mike? How you doing?
Man, you already know how I feel right now, boss man.
We feel the same, bro.
So
exactly.
We feeling the same. So we agree on the Tennessee concept as far as the referees being on the tape. I'm going to fully agree with the last caller on a couple of things he mentions. First off, the coordinating, Pete Golding and Bill O'Brien, they must be working on their exit plans because the way they've been called in the last couple of games is incredible. You remember I called about the Tennessee, how we are never ready in no-huddle offense with our defense? We weren't ready in regular static defense. Like we couldn't get in position. We weren't ready for things that we should be as Alabama players ready for. That it was just incredible. On Bill O'Brien, like, bro, how about like you said earlier, the football nowadays is geared for the offense, right? Of course, there's a passing league and all that. So utilize that to your advantage. Spread everybody out and run the ball up the middle.
Right.
We have one of the fastest running backs in the league in college football. How are you not spreading everybody out? Like we're gonna have trips right. We're gonna motion our tight end over into a blitz, and then we're gonna go that way. That makes no sense at all.
Yeah,
I watched that play unfold at least 10 to 12 times today on third or second and 7, second and 8. We're going third as well. We're going to motion our player into not a run defense. Not a run blitz. We're motioning our slot receiver and tight end into passing blitzes. That leaves nobody wide open. Just like LSU hit us with that running back. How we blitzed the outside linebacker and be in, and they just threw the ball to the running back. He was wide open.
Yeah.
We weren't getting in any of those situations because we're running straight into groups. So once we set up an offense or a pass play, it has to look the exact same way, and everybody's getting covered.
You know what?
I can see it. Right?
Yeah, look, what I was going to say is the problem we have is that we used to have Lane Kiffin as an offensive coordinator and Steve Sarkisian, guys that could do that stuff, And now, Bill O'Brien's had a great career, but he's just not it just doesn't work, man. It's just not, it's when you compare it apples to apples, man, he's just not good enough. He's not creative enough. Yeah, it just isn't working. Like, I'm not saying I think he's a good coach. I just don't think that the way that college football is played now, his style doesn't play anymore, right?
No, he reminds me of how Coach Saban was right before Lane got there.
Yeah.
Like, he believed in what he was going to do. He was going to stick with the run. He was going to play defense. But we started to fall behind the times. Bill O'Brien calls plays like he's falling behind the time. Like, how about we put Burton and Gibbs in the backfield and throw some flare routes? Like, how about we do something like put both of our running backs, one power back, and Gibbs in the back, and give the defense at least a second chance or a second thought. Mm-hmm. Like, we're not creative at all on offense. And like you said earlier, our defense is it's just a good defense. It's not a great defense.
They're okay.
It's not a spectacular SEC defense. We're just okay.
We're okay.
But even
when we need to stop,
with an okay defense.
Look, and when we needed to stop the last 2 games on the road, we didn't get one. We didn't get a stop.
No. But you know why? You know why we didn't get stops? It's because the offensive game plan does not complement the defense. It's okay to have an average defense. As long as your offensive game plan complements what you lack on the field, you can't. Right. We can't get short fields long fields on the offense and give up short fields when our defense aren't that great. And we can't continue to put our defense on the field because our offense can't stay on the field.
Right.
Like, there's no complementary, there's no cohesion as far as offense and defense is concerned. It's been horrible. And my last thing to say on top of everything, I said before, I feel bad for Bryce Young.
Yeah.
But I felt like today, in the third quarter coming out, I felt like we should have just went with Jalen Monroe because you could tell Bryce didn't have it today. He did not have no accuracy.
Right.
He didn't have no. His feet was jumbled up. There was no Bryce Young on the field today. It was just somebody with his jersey on. But I'm gonna let y'all go ahead and do y'all thing, man. Roll Tide.
Hey, Roll Tide. Thanks,
I'm kind of boo-hooing over here because the
keep your head
Warriors
up,
ain't
man.
doing so good.
Keep your head up.
The Warriors ain't doing so good, and now I've just lost my playoff hopes for college. So
yeah. Hey, but
it's gonna be a long year.
Let me promise you something. Auburn's not beating Alabama. So at least you know at the end of the season. There's going to be a dub at the end of the season, and it's going to be a pretty good one. So just know that you still got that out there.
Right on, man. Roll Tide, man. Everybody keep your heads up, bro.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the call. All right, right back to the phone lines again. I know a lot of you guys want to get in and talk about this. Who's this and where are you calling from?
This is Willow from Birmingham, Alabama.
Willow, what's up, man?
Man, I hate to be the guy to call in with more of the same, but let's just be honest. This has been a sloppy, just weird Alabama team. It felt like 2010 to me a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
that team
it is.
Kept being told that they control their own destiny.
I know.
Just win out, you'll be fine. It kind of had that 2010 feel. And so, look, man, things happen. You can't have this dominant program. You're going to have an off year. I can accept that. What bothers me is the trends. You know, even in Alabama's, some of our more epic seasons, like weird stats that jump out to me, like even in the Najee Harris era, right? Alabama had this weird stat about being the most negative productive plays. Like we had more negative plays than any other team in the playoffs. There's always this weird anomaly around Bama teams. But right now, it's all 3 phases of the ball. Special teams is muffing punts and giving up short fields to powerhouse offenses. The defense has been heavily overrated. Pretty much from start to finish. We heard every year how you got more returning starters. This is
right.
Pete Golden's moment to prove himself. I'm sorry, this defense has been trending horrifically the last 4 years of Pete Golden. And, you can look at other teams and we've heard things like, oh, well, the kids just aren't responding. They're not picking up the lesson plan, so to speak. Look, man, what you got's what you got. When you see something isn't working, then it's on you, the coaching staff, to start making changes. If the lesson plan is too complicated, you have to find a way to dumb it down. I don't know if there's too many decisions to be made in the middle of a play that the kids aren't picking up on. I still feel it falls on coaching, and I feel it falls on Pete Golden more than anybody. I agree. O'Brien is lackluster. I do agree with that. right now we've been fortunate with O'Brien because we have a 500-yard-a-game ball distributor, Heisman winner. You take him off of this team, we don't have a Bryce Young next year. We are in deep, deep trouble at that point.
Right.
I truly believe that because we can't count on the defense. And the reason why I point to Pete Golden and the defense so much is because if I can only fix one thing, if I can't fix special teams, if I can't fix the offense, if you can only fix one thing, at least if you fix the defense, we're still an undefeated team. Who's on the field every time we lose?
Yeah, right.
The defense.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I'm sorry, but in any league, especially in the SEC, when you go back to that Tennessee game, it didn't matter if we brought 3, dropped 8, 11 scorches. It didn't matter if we put 5 or 6 guys up front, 11 scorches, and we couldn't get pressure on Hendon Hooker no matter what we did.
I know.
We got just lit up by Hyatt last week or week before last. And I think that it's unreasonable to think that Bryce Young can put up 500 yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns, 50 points a game, and that can't secure us a victory?
Yeah.
How the hell is that possible?
I don't know. It might be time to bring Jeremy Pruitt out of wherever they've got him stashed and you know.
The chat's been hard on Jeremy Pruitt.
It's time to forgive him.
Everybody in the chat's going, please bring him back.
I say bring him back. I said that even earlier today. Look, I mean, you know, Pete's had other opportunities and he stays. They keep making him. Man, it might be time to just – I think Jeremy got his feet in the head coaching waters. It didn't go well for him, you know, and he's a great defensive coordinator and maybe somebody that would – well, you just feel like the game plan would be a lot better. That Tennessee game plan compared to what I watched Georgia do today, I mean, that tells you all you need to know. I'm not saying that you're going to win every game, but it was like flag football. Like we were trying to pull flags in that game. You know, Georgia's in there and they're laying licks on Hooker. You know, like we didn't even touch him. So
all day. We didn't even get near him. Will Anderson was the most silent I've ever seen him in his career in that Tennessee.
Yeah,
I don't think I heard his name mentioned. And you know, really, I mean, look, every now and then we know, we get it. We get everybody's best game. We get that, and that has been kind of the metric of Alabama for the last 15, 16 years, and I understand that. But this whole bend, don't break defense that we hear so much about from Pete, all I know is I started even hearing articles or reading articles and hearing, you know, ESPN say things along the lines of, well, the kids just aren't responding, this, that, and the other. Maybe they're just not as good as they think they are. Look, I have a tough time believing that you're going to convince me that Pitt has a better defense than Alabama, that Florida has a better defense than Alabama,
right? That,
you know, there are about 4 or 5 teams that played Tennessee way better than we did. Hell, LSU played them better than we did. You want to get right down to it. They didn't hang 50 on them. There's a problem here. And I think it in part starts with the defense. Obviously, O'Brien, look, I think you can get by with O'Brien right now, but that's only because you have Bryce Young. We saw what O'Brien looks like with Jalen Milroe, and it ain't pretty.
Yeah, right.
It's just not.
Yeah.
I am terrified if Bryce does not come back, and I'm going to be honest. I don't think he's coming back.
Well, he's not. But look, the crazy thing is that, and I know that we're not playing in the national championship game. I mean, we're not playing it. We're not making the playoff. We can still get to Atlanta. I'm not convinced that LSU is going to just roll through everybody. But now you need them to lose twice, right? So chances are. Yeah,
they're going to lose twice because even losing one, the tiebreaker goes to them.
Yeah, so you know, unless we lose to Ole Miss and they lose, and then Ole Miss is there, you know. So I mean, and
I'm not totally convinced that we beat Ole Miss, to be totally honest with you.
I'm not either.
I'm not totally convinced.
The days
we haven't been a great road team, and we are going to the Grove.
With this team, you just don't. It's not like it used to be, and it started last year too, man. I mean, look, they don't have that killer instinct on the road. You know, like they struggled against a bad Florida team last year. They almost lost to Auburn like this last year. There's no I don't know why, but they just don't play well on the road. And then on top of that, this is probably the worst group of wide receivers that Nick Saban's had since he got here. I mean, I think that the guys that he had in 2008 are better than this. 2007. I mean,
I said that.
At least Keith Brown got open.
Yes.
I mean, you know, what was the other guy? The other dude that he had, Hall. You know, like that guy got open.
Yeah.
They you know, these guys just aren't open. I mean, you go back and look at these plays. You put the sky cam on and watch them running around in their routes. Bryce Young throws the ball on the ground because no one's open. And then when he does throw it to them, they drop it anyway. Like if they're tightly covered, this isn't like what happened to Smitty out there where you throw the ball and he just, it doesn't matter how tight you cover him, he's going to catch it. How about the pass to Ja'Cory Brooks? It's like hits him right in his chest, and So I mean, like, I don't know, man. Jeez, so many things to get into. But hey, look, Willow, thanks for the call. I'm going to get to some other calls. I got to read some super chats. Keep your head up, though, man. Roll Tide, and thanks for calling in.
Absolutely, man. Hey, roll Tide, mate. Much love, brother. Be safe.
You too. Thank you. All right, let me hit up some super chats. I got to thank all you guys for the super chats. Gerald Franklin says this game is more on the offense than the defense. The defense played decent most of the game. Absolutely no creativity on offense. I'm guessing. Yeah, I feel like that too. I think that's Bill O'Brien's biggest issue, right? Next King, thank you for the $5 super chat, man. It really does mean a lot to me, man. I appreciate that so much. Scroll down, and as you guys are in the comment section, I'm not reading this one, but William, I will take your money. I think Alabama will be in the Citrus Bowl. But who knows? I mean, they could still end up in a New Year's Day bowl. If I was a Georgia fan like that guy, I'd just be glad that you don't have to play Alabama because Georgia doesn't intimidate Alabama like they do Tennessee. All right, let's go back to the phone lines again as we talk about this game. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Mobile, Alabama, Cam Horton.
What's up, Cam?
Look, man, I heard there's a head coaching position in Auburn. I think old Bill O'Brien would be a great position for that.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we doing? I've been an Alabama fan my entire life. McCarron, John Parker Wilson, all of them. Bryce Young, in my lifetime, is the best quarterback we have had. And we look like we should be in the Sun Belt Conference. I don't know what we're doing. I mean, look here. We got talent. And we're University of Alabama. We got 5 stars everywhere. I mean, it just don't make no sense to me. And when I'm watching the game, it looks like we might as well just be playing somebody from the Sun Belt. My question is, if Auburn needs a head coach, please come take Bill O'Brien. There's a vacancy. Come on, take him. Do it for me. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for the call, man. Appreciate it. Calling from Mobile. I think Bill O'Brien, I think his stock is definitely dropped, but I could still see him getting a head coaching job somewhere. I just the creativity in this day and age, particularly in the SEC West, on offense, and Jay Barker was on, and he said that a lot of that has to do with Bryce Young, what he's comfortable with. He felt like Bill O'Brien puts the game plan together for Bryce, and he doesn't like trick plays and all that. I don't know about that. I'm not in that. I just see that the teams that Alabama plays in this conference, when you're dealing with the best of the best, are very creative, including what Brian Kelly put together tonight to beat Alabama, and what we see with Tennessee, and what we see with Ole Miss and some of these other schools. I just don't feel like Alabama is as creative. Now they don't suck like Texas A&M, but it's still, when you compare him to the guys that were here before, he just doesn't hold the mustard. Mark, thank you for the super chat. You say that Alabama would get embarrassed if they played Georgia. Since Kirby Smart left, to me, Alabama's played a different breed in a bad way. Look, Alabama's still won championships. They've beaten Georgia. Georgia never intimidates Alabama. Alabama would not be embarrassed by them or any team. It's not that Alabama's a bad team, and it's and losing by 3 at Tennessee or 1 at LSU, it hurts. But these are really good. These are tough teams and tough environments, and and barely beating Texas was a great win. They're not elite right now. They're really good, but there's a difference. And honestly, like watching Georgia today, they had a great game plan, but they wouldn't. Alabama would attack them differently. Alabama gets up for the Georgia game. The only reason Georgia beat Alabama last year is because John Mechie and Jamison Williams both got hurt. When Alabama had them, Georgia looked like they were running. They were in quicksand. So I mean, let's be real here. But I do appreciate the super chat, and I know what you're saying. You think the defense needs to get better, and I agree with that too. All right, let's go back to the phone lines again, guys, as we talk about the game. 1 point loss in overtime. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Hey, Mick, how are you? This is Ben Catalano from West Orange, New Jersey.
What's up, Ben?
Hey, I just want to say before I get started on tonight's game, everything you've been saying about the Tennessee game a few weeks ago regarding not only the officiating, but also the announcers in the booth being extremely biased towards Tennessee. I 1,000% agree with everything you were saying. I just want to start off with that.
Well, I appreciate it. But
tonight,
today it's not the same. I mean, this game had nothing to do with officiating. I thought the guys did a good job today. Every time they went back and watched it, you're like, and people want to argue, oh, well, you say that because Alabama lost. No, I've been doing this for 30 years. It's the first time, that game is the first time that I ever said that it just didn't, the officiating just did not feel right the way that things were called that game. They just didn't feel right to me.
No, I saw it all the way up here in the Northeast. It was blatantly obvious what was going on. But regarding tonight's game, I mean, Alabama was outcoached.
Yeah.
They were outcoached on the offense and they were outcoached on the defense, especially the offense. And I know it might be repeating what some of the other callers have mentioned. There's no creativity, and the opposing team's defense already knows what play is going to be run before it even begins. So they know how to defend it. All season, the receivers can't get open because the defense knows what play it's going to be. Now, when Alabama recruits, Saban always said speed kills. So you know he's only going to recruit people that are extremely fast.
Right.
And no one's getting open. O'Brien's offense is so easy to predict and defend. That's why they're not getting open. The only thing that saves them is Bryce Young when he leaves the pocket and all of a sudden the receivers start getting open at some point. But regarding O'Brien, all I can say is don't let that door hit you on the way out. Hopefully someone comes in and takes him off our hands, and I'll even throw in a gift card to the other team that takes him.
Hopefully Auburn.
I realize both Golding and O'Brien are great recruiters, but at this point they're getting outcoached. And if both of them are not willing to change their approaches, that means we have to change them and get new coordinators in. That's all I have to say.
Hey, well, thanks for calling in from up in West Orange, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate you listening, not just today, but to all the shows and all you guys that are hanging out. Whether you're Alabama fans or you're, fans of LSU or whoever, man, I appreciate you guys being here. Please give us the thumbs up as we talk about this game. Obviously, it's not the way, it didn't turn out the way that we wanted it to. We've had a lot of games that have been really close down at LSU that have gone Alabama's way. But you know what? Tonight, LSU had one more point. They went for it at the end of the game to win instead of, hanging around, and they made a great play call and they beat Alabama. And it was a fun game to watch. Unfortunately, it wasn't the result that we wanted. All right. Who's this and where are you calling from?
What do you say, Mick? This is DeMarco, man. How you doing, brother?
Hey, what's up, man? Good to hear your voice today.
Yeah, after watching a couple of weeks of us, I had to call in. Just it's gonna be a little bit of a longer one, but me and you, we go back, so I hope you don't mind. But listen,
no,
brother,
go ahead.
say this.
Great to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just watching the game, a couple of quick pointers. First and foremost, we're not physical up front on the offensive line. We can't move anybody. We can't get a yard. Jahmyr Gibbs transfers in from Georgia Tech, and without Bryce Young really distributing him the ball, you'd be hard pressed to say he made a really good decision if you were just going based off of running the football. We're not able to move anybody more than Georgia Tech was able to move anybody. So that's the first problem that I see. On the back end, we're about as sorry as I've ever seen us. We don't have what I think you need to have to really be a great secondary. And hell, as you look across college football, maybe that's a continuum. right? Maybe it's not just an anomaly, but it seems like with Alabama, the game plan is simple. Just throw the ball deep, and you're bound to get some kind of pass interference call.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, we seem to bite ourselves with that every single week.
Well, let me just stop right there. I want to ask you this. Have you noticed that we don't complete deep passes anymore?
Yeah, I think some of that obviously is the lack of a legitimate vertical threat, and not because of speed. It has nothing to do with speed. We've got speed guys. I think the difference with having a guy like Jameson Williams, Devontae Smith, those guys knew how to get open and then use their speed to further accentuate the distance and the space they've created, right? And I think that's one of the reasons. But then, as I said before, Bill O'Brien is not as diverse and multiple as most collegiate coordinators are. And hell, even Ryan Day is having that issue. You know what I mean? They got in a fucking dogfight with Northwestern. And, so as you look across the landscape of college football week after week, you have to find a way to introduce new wrinkles. And I've said one of the things about Lane Kiffin and Sark was they found ways to get the best guys the opportunity to make plays. And, Nick Saban talks about this all the time. When he was in high school, he was in some kind of championship game, and he said, hey, you got two really good players, find a way to get either one of them the football to win the game, and he did. They won the game. Bryce Young should be allowed to look human and not have to be Superman for us to win the game. Yes, he missed some throws, but hell, if he's got to go out and be Superman every single Saturday for us to win a game, we're just not a good football team.
Right.
I think that's one of the things that I noticed in the game, and I kind of told myself we're just not a good football team. And even with that being said, is there a pathway for LSU to drop a game or another game or so, possibly, for us to get there? But do we deserve it? That's the thing that I kind of have a hard time agreeing with, because as it is now, the defense can't stop anybody, regardless of what the statistics say. The numbers will say we're not a bad defense. We don't force turnovers. We're not physical. We don't hit anybody hard. The hardest hit we had today came from a defensive back. I watched Harry get one with the running back in the hole, and he whiffs, and he tries to ankle tackle, and he doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
So again, this is not a SC football team. We're not able to just go and line 6, 7, 8 offensive linemen on the field and run the football. We can't even get 1 yard. If it's not for a pass interference call that gives us another 4 downs, we're not probably in the situation that we're in the first place.
Yeah.
So again, we're just not a good football team. And then coach decides to go for the 2-point conversion. I understand his thinking on that. We didn't execute, right? And like you said, I don't know that I buy a lot of Bryce Young doesn't want to, do the trick plays and all these things. I think he wants to win. And we didn't have to do trick plays to beat teams before.
Right.
But we had different wrinkles. If you go a couple of years ago, we had Josh Jacobs. We used to have a formation. Josh Jacobs would get back there, get a direct snap, and run you the fuck over.
That's right.
The defense knew what was coming. We knew what was coming. It didn't matter because Alabama could play a physical style of football, bust you in the mouth, and get you off the line of
Or think about this.
Can't move it.
When Lane Kiffin was coaching, he was constantly setting you up. You'd have a guy in motion that would come through. You fake a handoff to the guy. Maybe you fake like a double reverse. Like you would just do stuff constantly. And then there would come a point in the game, and he still does it at Ole Miss, where he gets what he wants. He does that play, but he does the play that he really wants to run, and then it's a touchdown, and the guy's wide open in the middle of the field, Like O.J. Howard seemed to be that guy a lot. Like you just be like, oh, what's he doing?
Yep.
No, nobody's covering him,
Yeah.
We don't have that anymore, man.
I agree. He found a way to make you move your defense into where you thought he was trying to go, and the whole time he was setting something up on a whole different
right.
You left unprotected.
Yeah.
And he set it up all game long with all of these little jabs and these little nuances,
That's
these little wrinkles. And he was always a step ahead. Even when we might have had a negative play, he was a step ahead in terms of what he knew he was trying to go. And you saw Sark. Sark called one of the greatest games I've ever seen against Ohio State, even amid accepting the job at Texas. He called one of the greatest games I've ever seen from an offensive coordinator, and it was an amazing experience. And I think, when I look at Pete Golding, everybody wants to jump on Pete Golding. I always think, the problem with our defense is we don't create enough turnovers, And unfortunately, the penalties that we give up, they're just as bad as not getting turnovers. Because they keep us on the field when we should have gotten off the field. But just we can't move anybody.
DeMarco, let me ask you this, though. How does this team, and you just kind of hit on something else that I was kind of talking about with the people I was watching the game with. How do they not get a turnover? I mean, even in the Tennessee game, like the guy literally had to just drop the football and we just picked it up and ran it in. You know, like, how do we not, like, get an interception? You know, how do we not rip the ball out and get a fumble? You know what I mean? Like, it's like you're going to get a certain amount of turnovers because it's just going to be dumb luck. But this team's ability or inability to get turnovers, to me, too, is why you go on the road and you win these games, because we used to get turnovers in these spots. We would have gotten a turnover at the end of the game and beaten LSU. We would have gotten one against Tennessee and beaten them. But we just don't. Well, I mean, I guess we got one against Tennessee, and then we just couldn't stop them. And we had the bad call by the official, too, that helped them stay in the game when it should have been over. So, I mean, that's right. I don't want to take that away from them, but in this game in particular, and they've got to do a better job getting turnovers. And I guess it's too late now. I mean, because they're not going to reach their goal, So, I mean, I'm not saying quit and not have a good season. I'm just saying that they're not going to reach their goal. They're not going to be. This team's not going to be a champion.
We're not physical enough. We get beat tonight on the exact same play that Clemson ran on us with Hunter Renfrow a couple years ago, except the only difference is they didn't pick it the way that Clemson did.
Right.
This is the exact same play that they ran in this situation. How in the hell you're not prepared for it? I have no idea.
Well, they had guys that play at the end of the game. They looked like it looked like a fire drill. Like they had a timeout, and then you got guys running off the field. Yeah, they just weren't ready.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, they were confused. They weren't ready. And that's the thing, we just, to me, I don't know if it's the coaching staff can't connect with this generation, if Saban's not got the right guys around him to coach these kids up. But the problem that I see is we're not physical enough. We don't hit anybody in the mouth. There is no longer a fear when you play Alabama. It used to be, I hate playing those guys.
Right.
That was what the other teams thought when they had to play against Alabama.
Yeah.
I hate playing against those guys. But now teams come and they think that, hell, we can compete with these guys. And so what we find is it doesn't matter about the talent. It's about how do you scheme your best players to be successful. And I don't think we're doing a great job of scheming to get our best players successful. Jameer Gibbs, again, without Jameer, I mean, how the fuck is our running back the best receiver? Our receivers can't separate.
Because they're never open. When they do get open, you're like, you're shocked, honestly. It's like, oh, well, right. And then every week, what do we say every week? What do we say every week, DeMarco? We're like, okay, it's going to be JoJo Earl. It's going to be Ja'Cory Brooks. It's going to be, this guy or that guy that's going to be the guy that steps up and makes a difference. And each and every week, we don't have that. There's no Devontae Smith. There's no Henry Ruggs. There's no Jerry Jeudy.
Yep.
There's no
Jeudy. No Cooper.
Nobody.
No Ridley. Nobody wants to make a fucking play. Nobody wants to step up and be the alpha dog. And that's the problem that we have. We don't have those dudes. And again, Will Anderson, all those guys are really good players. They play at a high level, but we don't seem to have a dude that when you come in, they know. Like Georgia, I watched that Georgia game. Those guys were hitting. Those guys were making plays. Those guys didn't let you get 2 and 3 and 4 yards after the touch. They got after Hendon Hooker in that offense and competed. Where was that when we played them?
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. It's one of the things though is that the league, because of the NIL, because of the transfer portal, is changing. And one of the things that I'm guessing Alabama's probably going to have to do is just, make sure that you nail the transfer portal. I mean, you got Gibbs, he was great. Some of the other guys, okay, not that good. I don't know. But, you see some of these teams are built, like LSU built their team on the transfer portal. I don't think they're that good. I think they're okay. but they're not bad, you know. And and Brian Kelly's a good coach. They've gotten better every week. I mean, if he didn't do all that stupid crap against Tennessee with the going for it, they may have had a chance in that game, you know. But I've always had a lot of respect for him. I mean, look, just as a guy that you know keeps a close eye on the, you know, the spreads, those Notre Dame teams didn't lose a lot. They didn't lose a lot at all. They barely lost, you know. Although they kicked the shit out of out of Clemson today, his old school. So anyway,
yeah, I mean, and I think the dynasty. You know, one of the things I want to say too is, as we look at the dynasty, just look how quickly it shifts. So you lose the game to Georgia last year. Granted, guys are hurt. We got guys who probably drugged the hell out of him because our best receiver got hurt when he busted the coverage on Georgia. He's wide open in the middle of the field. Bryce Young underthrows and the guy has to stop. That's why he gets hurt. So you lose that game. That contributes to the narrative. And then you come out this season, you don't look good on the road. That contributes to the narrative. So now all these talks begin to start about, well, is this closer to the end? And you got Paul Feinbaum, who's going to have a fucking rant on his show all week long. And you start to hear all of these little things starting to chirp in the background. And, you know, as you look at where we're at as a program, you know, where does this kind of leave us where we can no longer assert ourselves on the road?
Mm-hmm.
Teams can probably come into Bryant-Denny and have some level of success that they wouldn't have had years before. But I just look at these teams that we have, and I don't know if it's the kids in the generation, which I think it might just be, or is it because it seemed to be kids came to Alabama back in the day because they knew that that's where they need to be. They knew that that's where they wanted to be. They wanted to be there. Now kids come here because they're like, this is the best place that'll develop me. This is the best place that'll help me get to the NFL.
Right.
It's transactional. It used to be guys wanting to come here and hit guys in the mouth, and now we don't have that. We can no longer just line up and run the football. We don't care if you know we're going to run it. We're going to throw the toss. And that's what Georgia did. Georgia got in the jam today and said, you know what? 7 or 8 offensive linemen, we're running the football. Stop us.
Right. But you know what else they did? They did that, but they also hit some deep passes. You know, they opened it up with the deep ball that we haven't seen in a while. Honestly, we haven't seen the deep ball this year. Last year, right. Jamison Williams is what got us to the national championship game because he was open. He just found that when he caught those deep passes. So, yeah. LSU played us tight in the box because there's no fear of us being taken, even with all that speed on the field. The guy that transferred in, I don't even know where the hell he's at. Joe, all these guys that we have that are speed guys, they're not able to separate. Right.
They're not able to, and it could be Bill O'Brien or whatever.
Who knows?
Just not able.
And this isn't happening. And then maybe you look at the wide receiver coach and you start asking him, hey, what's going on here? DeMarco, man, great call. Always good to hear your voice, man. Roll Tide. And thanks for calling in tonight.
All right, brother. Talk soon.
Hey, Roll Tide, man. See ya. Great call there with DeMarco. That was a lot of fun. Hey, let me hit up these super chats, guys, and I appreciate them. Keep them coming, man. They go a long way as far as all the stuff that we do here. HUD wants to know, what did I think about the decision to go for 2 the second time? I would have kicked it. I probably would have kicked it I don't know. The first time I was like, maybe you go for 2. I'm always a little hesitant on the 2-point conversions, but I don't have I like taking the points. I'll just say that. Now, when you get it though, you're like, well, I'm glad we went for it. So there's a lot of times where I'm like, hey, I would kick it, and then we go for it and we get it. And so I kind of just put myself on mute when it comes to like what I would have done in that particular spot. I probably would have kicked both of them. Ben, hey man, great talking to you up in Orange, New Jersey, man. Appreciate the super chat, man. Thank you, Roll Tide. And I know I got one more in here. Let me throw it up there. Bama Banker. What is concerning just as much as the game day coaching is what seems like a general lack of player development lately. This is a good point. 4 or 5 stars all over the place, but you wouldn't know it. Look, that to me is an issue. I think that's an issue, particularly with wide receiver. And maybe it was just, Slade Bolden should have came back. I mean, I don't even know if is he ever going to step foot in a real NFL game? But you know what? He would have made a lot of NIL money. He would have been a really important player this year. I mean, kind of our, type Stetson Bennett type of guy. And I don't know why he didn't, why he decided to leave college and go to the NFL. I don't know if it was, he really thought that he was going to make it or maybe he just was done with school. I don't know. But you're right. I mean, I think that when one of the biggest issues that Nick Saban has had is that he gets coaches, they come and then they take other jobs and then they leave. And then it really puts Alabama in a predicament, trying to replace those guys. And, it's been a revolving door. And like with Lane Kiffin, for example, as good of a coach as he was, he got that job in Florida. And all of a sudden, he had to go by the time the national championship game came. And, who knows what was going on behind the scenes, but you could just tell that the team wasn't ready when they played Washington that year. And then he was out. Other guys stick around. Sometimes they do a great job, like Kirby Smart when he was coordinator. He made sure that he coached Alabama and they won the championship. I thought Mike Loxley did a good job of that when he got the Maryland job. Lane was more concerned about what Lane was going to do and rolled out. I think there's a lot of other coaches that are that way as well. There's a story that Kirby took the recruiting board with him when he went to Georgia. I think it's true. But he's like, hey, look, here's where Alabama has you. Come to Georgia. You're constantly dealing with that kind of stuff if you're Nick Saban. And so one of the toughest things that he's had to do is to continue to churn out coordinators. And so maybe you give up a little bit in one area to have someone that is more consistent, like a Pete Golding. And I don't know. I mean, I throw that up there, but I do think that the development of, has been a little bit slower than we're used to. I mean, that's just kind of my theory on that. But thanks for the super chat. All right, going back to the phone lines. Who's this and where you calling from?
Hey, man, just Quan, man, from New Orleans, man.
Quan, I was hoping you called. Because I feel for you, man. It's going to be a tough week for you.
Oh, man, it's rough. It's rough. It's really, really rough. My phone is going off.
Mine too, though. Mine is too.
Everybody's calling me, and I can't do nothing but just accept it right now. Nick, I'm going to touch on a few points, Nick. And I've been hearing everybody talk tonight, and one thing I ain't heard nobody do is what I'm going to do. I'm going to hold Coach Saban accountable on some of this, man. And the reason I say that is I know, he's an old school coach. He believes in doing things a certain way. But Nick, the last 6 or 7 years, maybe the last 10 years, the one thing we always gave him was he was able to adapt and always able to stay one step ahead. It looks like college football has caught up with us. It looks like everybody has caught up with us. And the reason why I'm saying Coach Saban is because it looks like he let Bill O'Brien take us two steps back. Bill O'Brien should have been a one-and-done coach. I know we went to the Natty last year, but I believe that was more of players than actual his scheme. And tonight was just another example of it. We come out of a bye and we come out that flat. We have the first possession when we get down there. Bryce throw the interception. We moved the ball like it was nothing. It was easy. Then we go back again and we got 4 straight punts. It kind of reminds you of Texas, when we went for those 3 or 4 or 5 drives when we got punts, and it's like this dude
exactly
is,
like Texas. Exactly like Texas, Quan. Yeah. Exactly like Texas. I thought the same exact thing during the game.
Yeah. Right. It felt like Texas. We let LSU get in the game. The way we drove down on that first possession, I'm thinking we finna blow LSU out.
Me too.
Okay, Bryce threw the interception. we finna blow LSU out. It looked like we was playing from this. I mean, it was just it was bad because once again, this guy and this pro style offense, it's whatever you want to categorize it as. It's like we went from Mike Lossy, Lane Kiffin to Steve Sarkisian to Coach Saban actually letting this guy take our offense back. And to remind you, Coach Saban been talking about this play calling and we got to do better and this and that. But from what I'm saying, Nick, it looks like Bill O'Brien said, "Man, what the hell what you talking about? I'm gonna do what I want to do." You know, the game tonight, prime example, he go away from the run game when we should have been inserting the run game.
Right.
You can't put it all. You can't put it all on Bryce. But it's going to be hopefully some heads roll behind this.
I don't understand when at the beginning of the game when it looked like the Texas game and we were backed up in there, you know, and I thought the commentators were easy to listen to. I'm not a fan of a lot of these commentators. Let me take that back. Some of them, you know, especially the CBS team. I just can't stand the one guy that comes on CBS. Yeah. I just it's not that I think he's a bad broadcaster. It's just, you know, some people on here might like polka music. I don't like polka music. You know what I mean? And so you may be the best polka player that ever got behind them, you know, whatever the instruments are they play, but I won't like it. And I feel like that's kind of the case. The guys tonight, they're easy to listen to, man. They did a nice job. Like, it was a good call, a well-called game, the well-officiated game. That part of it was all right. But I'm with you, man. I thought the same exact thing. When they're backed up in the end zone and we're not trying to run the ball at all. And it was like incomplete pass. It's like, look, run the ball some. You got to run the ball some, and you got to do it early. You know, like give Bryce a chance.
Give him a chance, man. I mean, it's like this whole season looks like we expected Bryce to come in and Bryce got to be Superman. Well, Bryce not gonna be able to be Superman every week. He's not gonna be able to do it. It's like, you know, what our All-American callers, Kevin from Dallas, all called in last year and told us all year. We got an upperclassman problem.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we got too much loyalty to where Jermaine Burton, Trayshawn Holden, Cameron Latou, these dudes ain't getting it done now. Why isn't we didn't see Tyler Harrell yet? I'm pretty sure next week when we go to Oxford, we're going to see Tyler Harrell, but why I got to take a loss?
If he starts catching bombs.
Yeah. Right. Same thing with Eli Ricks. Nick, you know, if Eli Ricks plays in that Tennessee game, I'm sure that wide receiver, you know, I don't think he's getting 5 touchdowns on Eli Ricks, man.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why I say I can't absolve Coach Saban from this because his philosophy and the way he go about doing things, sometimes you gotta conform to what's going on. You know,
right?
Eli Ricks was bought there from day one. He was better than everything you had, from Kool-Aid to Terry Arnold. This kid was better than them, man.
Yeah.
You didn't bring him here to sit him on the sideline half of the team.
Yeah.
You know, and then I look at the Georgia and Tennessee game today, and it just pisses me off because Kirby didn't play schematics and all these different schemes. Kirby lined up his best players against their best players, and let's go. We're gonna win it. We're gonna win and lose with this.
We're gonna attack you at the line of scrimmage.
It's just exactly, and it's just like, you know, it's starting to feel like it's slipping in. I want Coach Saban, I want him to come out and say, man, it's some changes need to be made. You know, I don't want him to come. I know he's not going to come out and say I'm firing Bill O'Brien or Pete Golden, but he needs to come out and acknowledge that this hasn't worked this year.
Yeah, right.
This hasn't worked, man. The play calling hasn't worked. You know, Pete Golden, they did their job the first half, but I mean, it's
well, look, Quan, this is the question that Nick Saban's going to have to ask himself. You know, when he goes back and evaluates where the program is, are these the guys that he thinks are going to get Alabama back to being elite? You know, and you know, there's some slippage, but we've seen it in the past that, you know, you have a year like this, 2010, and then they came back and they won the championship in 2011 and 2012. I don't think Nick Saban's age has anything to do with it. They have the number one, you know, commitment class right now, recruiting class in the country, still getting players. Now the game's changed a little bit because you got the transfer portal, which Alabama does great in the transfer portal as well. We're going to have to step up the NIL game because maybe we could have gotten that, you know, the wide receiver out of Pittsburgh that won the Blitnikoff last year. You know, we could have bought him instead of letting him go to, you know, USC. You know, but I think that he's ahead of all that stuff. I think you're right. I mean, it's good. You're going to have to look at it and go, look, Bill O'Brien, you might be a great head coach, but you're just not what we want as an offensive coordinator, you know, and I hope he gets a head coaching job, and I hope it's down at Auburn. And if it's not, you know, somewhere else, but he's going to have to answer that, because if you take another step back next year, then guess what? The dynasty's in trouble. See, I don't think the dynasty's in trouble. I just think you lost 2 games. It's a very, very tough schedule, but the fact that we don't dominate on the road anymore is a eye opener, and it's something that they're going to have to figure out.
It's concerning, man, and it's very concerning. And my thing is, from this point on now, I feel like the younger guys should get on the field. You know, it wouldn't surprise me, man, if we start hearing dudes, you know, if dudes just, you know, Eli Ricks, it wouldn't surprise me. The guys feel like, oh man, I'm going to get ready for the NFL now. It's over with now.
Yeah, it could happen, which has never happened for Alabama. I don't remember it ever happening with the Crimson Tide.
It's never happened. You know, I remember in 2019 with Trayvon Diggs and Terrell Lewis, you know, they set out the bowl game. You know, but I'm just saying now, it's like, if Bryce does say, man, you know what, I'm going to get ready for the NFL, man.
Yeah.
I don't feel like nobody should be there.
Well, I'll say this too, Quan. It's the opposite. I mean, remember when Waddle played in the championship game and everybody was like, all the stars are like, oh, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do this. He did it anyway. He did it because he wanted to do it.
Anyway.
Right. And, yeah, I mean, and I think that, you know, that's kind of what this program's been.
Right. And it's I mean, Coach he got some critical off-season moves to make. If we know any indication of history, maybe, I believe we probably gonna have 2 new coordinators this fall. You know, because you know, I know Pete Golden is like you said. You thought you could make a Kirby 2.0, but he's not.
No,
he's not that, man. You know, he's not that. You know, he's not gonna get it done. You know, he did all right that first half, but the second half, you know, and it's just frustrating because everybody knows with this kid Jaden, the quarterback for LSU, what he is, what he can do. And he ran over us today. That touchdown in overtime, that was, you know, that was unacceptable. You know, that was unacceptable. Then he told Toto and Chris Bradwell. They showed Coach Sager hollering at Chris Bradwell.
Yeah.
So they charge at him, and it's just, you got to be some changes made, man, because you know what I know? We finna hear it for the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah,
is over.
Yeah, that's what they're going to say. But look, Quan, and I'll you know, kind of end this call with this, is that the dynasty's not over. Alabama lost 2 games by 4 points, 1 in overtime and 1 on a last-second field goal against teams that are in the top 10. You know, I mean, that's kind of what happens. I mean, the other part of it is that some of the years we won national championships, we played a schedule like Georgia played this year, where it just sucked. Right. You know, you had a tough game at the beginning of the year. You know, they had a tough game today, and then the rest of them have been cupcakes. You know, like Alabama's playing 5 legitimate road games this year. 5 legitimate road games. Every single one of them's tough, and they're 2-2. And if you set up a schedule like an NFL type schedule, that's why those teams, are 10-7 and 11 and whatever, or 500, because you got to play all those games on the road. Well, in college, you don't have, you don't really have to do that. Most years, it's like I'm going to play most of the games at home, one neutral site game, and then I'm going to have maybe 1 or 2 tough road games. This year, we have 5 tough road games, and we're going to find out if they're either going to be over 500, they're going to be under 500 because they got to play Ole Miss next week, and who knows how they'll respond from this loss. How that's going to turn out. But I think that's part of this is that the schedule was just extremely tough. So, there was no room for error, basically.
Yeah.
Great call, man. Thank you for calling in. I was hoping you called tonight, Con.
Roll Tide, man.
Hey, roll Tide, my friend. Talk to you next time.
Man.
See ya. All right, Chris has got some more super chats popped up. This one is from Sir Pope. He says, what do you think about replacements for Bill and Pete? He said, I say bring in Mullen and Muschamp. Look, I'm good with that. I'm good with that. I like the idea. I said that, it's time to bring Jeremy Pruitt back and give him the let him come through Nick Saban's program, coaching, rebuilding program, the steps of rebuilding. I don't think the SEC would let him back in though, because Tennessee's in trouble because of the stuff that he did there, which is now legal, which is crazy, even crazier about the whole thing, because you can pay players now. I mean, wink, wink. Not that they weren't always getting paid, but it's above board. So, I mean, I have a whole nother, I could sit here and talk about that all day. But the guy's probably got a black ball on him right now. But I would like to see Jeremy Pruitt. But Muschamp would be good too. I think Muschamp's at Georgia though. So anyway, yeah, I'm with that. And Dan Mullen, Nick Saban's always like Dan Mullen. I mean, I remember Alabama playing Mississippi State, and him listening to his comments about Dan, and they were always good. All right, look. Let's do some more calls. I'm going to try to make them go a little faster so I can get all you guys in. So what I'm going to do is get you on, make your point, and then we'll kind of chew on it and then go to another call. So, but look, we appreciate you being here tonight. Please like and subscribe to our channel, the Bama Insider YouTube channel, part of Bama Insider on 3 now, and we have coverage. If this is the first time that you've hung out with us, of Alabama football every day on our website, Bama Insider, Andrew Bone and Joseph Hastings. They double team recruiting, best in the country. Bama's class is number 1. They just got Julian Sand, a 5-star quarterback out of California to commit. Alabama did for not this year, but next year's class. Those guys are on it, man. They know what's going on. Also, Clint Lamb's our team writer. He's a really funny dude, knows what he's talking about. Him and Jimmy Steiner on the message boards all the time. And you can do this. You can sign up for it $1 for 4 months or $10 for an entire year. But I would check it out, man. I mean, it's definitely worth it. This is where, and we're kind of in the middle of transforming team coverage. And we want you guys to be part of it as well, the new world order of team coverage. Our show is brought to you by Westgate Luxury Condominiums. Find out about Westgate at westgateal.com. If you're coming to town, for basketball, for football, you're just coming for a visit, you need to check it out, man. They got 1 to 5 bedroom units. Some people live in them. Some people rent them out, but they're awesome. It's a great place to go. It's right next to Bryant-Denny Stadium, right next to the Walk of Champions and all that stuff. So, definitely worth if you're coming into town and you want to do it right, a look-see. All right, let's go back to the phone lines again. Try to get some more calls in tonight. Alabama overtime loss by a point to LSU, who went for 2, went for the win, and they got it against Alabama. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, Nick, this is Jay in Tampa. How are you doing? Roll Tide.
What's up, man? Roll Tide.
I remember in 2020 calling in and talking to Kyle after Mac, and Ruggs and Smith and Waddle blew Georgia out early in the season, and we said, I was saying on that call, enjoy it while it lasts. Sometimes, it just felt like that might be as good as it gets.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I'm thinking back on the Rolando McClain era, Reggie Ragland, Minka, Ronnie Harrison, Ruben. I mean, you can go on and on. CJ, right? I mean, and it's like who are those dudes? Like, who are those dudes on this team? I don't think they exist. And it seems like it's a cultural problem with the team. It's like when you go back over this 15-year run with Saban, it just seemed like at least those first 10 years was always just those ruthless, mean, hard hitters. And I just don't see that culture anymore. And, we heard all this talk early on in Will Anderson's run, like, man, this could be the next Derek Thomas. I just don't see that either. Like, I don't feel like, I know Will Anderson is a superstar, but I don't feel like he ever reached that bar.
Right.
And I know it sounds crazy, but I almost think it would behoove him to stay another year. I know it's not going to happen, but it's kind of like Najee did.
Yeah.
Just raise his stock and prove to the Shield, to the NFL, that he's going to be a first-round pick. And I also want to mention one other thing. It's like, no one thought that Derrick Henry was built to be a running back, and Bama saw something in him. I mean, a lot of people thought, if you really look at how Derrick Henry's built, he's an edge rusher.
Right.
So it's like, what does Bama see to put the ball in his hands and let him bust it up the middle off the, off tackle runs like he would do? And we've heard time and time again, Jalen Milroe is the fastest guy on the team. Why is he on the bench?
Yeah,
like,
I'm with you on that, dude. God, I'm with you on that.
Like, why not bring Jalen Milroe in at running back, and you can do like halfback passes and crazy things with, like, why is Jalen Milroe not utilized?
Because we don't have
and
any creativity. That's why.
Right, exactly. We have no creativity, and we don't feel like we need to be creative. It's like, we've got all these 5-stars. If everyone does their job, it's like it's too conservative.
Right. But how many times have you watched?
Win.
Right. How many times have you watched teams struggling? I can remember when Bob Stoops was coaching Oklahoma and they played Alabama, and Bama was giving them a game at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and they faked a punt from like their 30-yard line or something, got the first down, and then kicked the rest of the game. Right. It's like, yeah. I mean, sometimes you got to be creative, man. Sometimes you got to think out of the box. Alabama doesn't beat Clemson in the national championship in 2015 if they didn't onside kick in that game. You remember the onside kick? Right? They don't win without that. Like what
sometimes you gotta shift it.
Right.
You gotta shift the energy, the mojo of the game, the juju isn't there. It's like tonight, like, I was calling my brother, my dad, all my fellow Bama fans. I'm like, why is Bryce still in this game? And I'm not saying, like, I remember I was asking my friends, and I was like, is his ego more important than us winning this game? Because I just felt like there was a period in the third quarter where we could have gotten a 2-3 touchdown lead.
Right.
If we had just started generating some offense. And it would have been confusing. It's like just in 2018, they bring into in the national title game, and then the next year they bring Jalen in, and those things confuse good defenses. Those moves confuse UGA. Tonight, to put in Jalen isn't to say that Bryce isn't the better quarterback, but tonight he might be.
Yeah, right. Give him a chance.
So
at least come up with a package or something, right?
Right. Well, I know Bryce made the play to like pull us back into the game, but he was pretty flat. Like, I mean, if you really look at, I mean, he was throwing behind, over, under, like bounce, skip balls. And I know you said that earlier because of coverage, but still, like, there were still windows there that Bryce tends to hit. And I'm not saying Jalen Milroe would have been the permanent answer, but just do something quirky, like put Jalen at tailback and like pitch him the ball, and who knows what he'll do. Like, it's just a shame to see a lot of talent go to waste.
Right.
Because I heard it in the offseason. revenge tour. You know, there was just like, it was the mantra with this team in the offseason, like
right.
scorched earth, taking
Yeah.
prisoners.
And then the Texas
revenge
game
tour.
came. And then the Texas game came, and you're like, okay, yeah, this is the same Alabama road team that we saw last year. And they have the toughest road schedule that they've ever had since I've been covering the team. Good luck.
Well, listen, I know you got other calls. I'm going to end on this note. To me, there's something different. I'm not trying to be super pessimistic. This is from my heart. This season and this loss in particular feels a little different. This isn't fluky like losing to Ole Miss 2 years in a row, or like we've had some losses in past seasons.
Right. This wasn't the officials in the Tennessee game, is what you're saying. You know, where you're going, okay,
right.
This is such bull crap. Watching these guys throw flags the entire night, and one flag in particular that changes the entire spread because Bama is going to cover. It didn't feel like that to me. I know what you're saying.
This felt like Texas. This felt like Texas A&M. This felt like, I know there's a lot of flags in the Tennessee game. It's just there's a lack of intensity. Saban always talks about intensity. It ain't on this team. This team. And if this trend, because this has been 2 years of this trend where they played flat at Florida last year, they lost to A&M last year. It's just like we're seeing this more and more and more. And I just worry that, like, seeing Clemson collapse tonight, I really am starting to see maybe a paradigm shift. Like maybe, and I know Bama fan wants to hear this, but I mentioned early on this call, the Rubens and the Raglins and it may be Kirby's era now. And I know people want to reach to the front and strangle me, but like, I'm sorry, man. Like Georgia is set up right now to really define a dynasty.
Well, let's see what happens. You know what? Let's see what happens. I mean, they didn't win the championship.
If LSU plays UGA, give me the spread. Like, honestly, God, what do you think the spread is?
That Georgia beats them. Georgia will beat them by, I don't know, 30. I mean, they're not that good. I mean, I don't think it'll be a good game. You know, I think we could beat. I think Alabama beats Georgia, but
17.5.
As bad as Alabama's wide receivers are, I think they still beat Georgia. And so Georgia and Tennessee, because Tennessee's probably going to get into the college football playoff as an at large. Like they all took a deep breath tonight, because they don't have to play Alabama now.
Oh yeah.
Oh well, you know what? And for us, it's like you said. Is this the beginning of the end, or is this where they circle the wagons and figure out, what direction things are going to move in the offseason? It's going to be 2010, or is this going to be, is 2022 going to be the year where we're like, you know what? It's been an incredible run, but the run's starting to end. I don't know the answer to that. I hope that it's just 2010, and then we go on a back-to-back years and win it all.
Between now and 2030, when I presume Saban retires, if let's say Bama gets the SEC championship, 4 of these remaining years, it is more than likely going to be against UGA. And I will tell you that if Bama goes the SEC championship 4 out of the next 6 or 7 years, 5 out of the next 6 or 7 years, and plays UGA in every one of those, UGA should and probably will be favored in every one of those games, just based on the trends and how Kirby's built that defense. And the truly last thing, who is going to be throwing the football next year? I'm going to hang up and let you talk about that because I don't know if it's going to be Jalen, but
no, it won't.
Nick, I really appreciate you, man. Roll Tide, and let's all keep our heads up.
Yeah, man, keep your head up. Roll Tide, brother. Thank you for calling in. I really appreciate it. Let me bring on Clint Lamb, who's our team writer. Clint R. Lamb on Twitter. Clint, what's up, dude? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me, Mick?
I can hear you. I can't see you, so I had to make sure that you were really there. So what'd you think?
In about.
I think you're we just kind of lost you. I don't know what happened there.
And it feels like, I don't know, man. It feels like that. is team that we've seen since week one, game one, and there just hadn't been solutions. There hadn't been improvement, like penalties. I think that's the big thing for a lot of fans.
Clint,
is that
your audio is kind of coming in and out. We'll get with Chris. Let me see if we can get you
point and push to is stand.
Yeah, Chris, I see if you can get with Clint and figure out how we can get him back on again. All right, let me do one more call, and then we'll try to get Clint back on when he's ready. Who's this and where you calling from?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, hi there. My name is Jay. I'm calling from Virginia. How's it going?
Good. What's up, Jay?
Well, not too much. I got a couple of big points or a couple of things I'd like to make. So I watched this game, I tuned in from the first snap or, basically literally from the first snap. And I noticed on the first drive, we really seemed to do a good bit of pre-snap movement and drove down the field. Of course, we did give up the interception, but, the offense looked pretty crisp, and we seemed to be doing some pre-snap movement, trying to figure out what the defense was doing.
Right.
Next three drives, I think we went 3 and out, or maybe we had a few first downs in there, but basically they were 3 and outs. And I think I saw one play that was pre-snap that even had any type of pre-snap movement, and it was like we're just sitting there, went away. I've noticed that seems to be a kind of trend is when we're not doing pre-snap movement, we seem to be in a lot of trouble. And I really don't know what to make of that. But that seemed to kind of go on. It seemed like if we could get a little movement in line and get the defense moving a little bit, we seem to execute a little bit better. That's just my take on it. But, I'd like to see see what the other guys say. A couple of weeks ago, I was watching another podcast, and a guy referred to, our offense is basically playing backyard football.
Right.
It really looked like backyard football a couple of times today. I don't really know what to make of that, other than the guys were, I think that's our offensive strategy. I'm not a big fan of Bob, to be honest with you.
Me neither. I don't dislike him, but I just don't think he's very creative.
One is development.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello?
Yeah. No, I'm here. Yeah. You said development.
So, the other thing is, I don't think, look, we've got all this talent on both sides of the ball. We don't seem to be doing the development right.
Mm-hmm.
We don't seem to be developing these players, and this could be the sad thing about it is maybe we're just not evaluating our talent, before we offer them scholarships and take them in. Maybe it's not a development thing. Maybe it's poor evaluation and analysis of the players that we're getting. We think they're 5-star. They seem to be 5-star. They're rated that way, but our evaluation of them is completely off.
It could be.
That coach thing, I don't know. I hadn't heard anybody really talk about that. That's in the back of my mind as to whether or not that could actually be, an issue. And it kind of ties in with recruiting. If our recruiting is not, if we're missing on our recruiting, then we're missing on our talent. And we're not developing it properly. To me, those all go hand in hand. And the last thing is, I think Ole Miss is going to steamroll us next week.
Yeah.
If I was Lane Kiffin, I wouldn't even have the punter dress out. I'm going for it on 4th down every time. I'm going to make you beat me 4-down football because I don't think we could do it. And then the last thing is if we're playing Vanderbilt next week, I might take Vanderbilt.
I don't know about that now. Look, you're probably right about Ole Miss. It could look like that Utah game. Every time Alabama plays these games after they're like pretty much out of it, they don't do too well. But Vanderbilt stinks. I mean, Ole Miss is a good football team. It's going to be a tough game. And you wonder how motivated these guys are going to be knowing that they're not going to play in the SEC championship. They're not going to the college football playoff. They're looking at maybe a New Year's Day bowl, if they get lucky. Could be the Citrus Bowl or something like that, which is a great bowl, but it's not what this program has kind of, made that's not what their goal is ever.
Right. Exactly. You're 100% right in that.
Yeah.
And, look, I have to keep reminding myself, these 18, 19, 20, 20-year-old kids, right? They're kids.
Yeah.
They have a lot of different things going on in their life, a lot of different pressures. We did at the same time. So I'm not laying any blame at all on any of these kids. They're kids.
Yeah.
They do the best they can.
You're
they
right.
try and, what they're done. If we have problems and they've been going on for 2 years, that's the coaching. That's coaching.
Yep.
It is not the kids. Now, my final point on this is I think you will see. I think I think if the program is in big trouble, I think you will see a lot of players leave on the portal this offseason.
Well,
I think is a key area to watch. Is basically how many kids declare for the portal and when.
Yep. Okay. Well, great call, man. Roll Tide. Thank you.
Yep. Have a good one.
You too. All right, let's bring Clint Lamb back on again. See if we can get Clint Lamb back on the phone from BamaInsider.com, part of our Monday Night Quarterback Show. Clint, are you here?
Can you hear me now, man?
Yes, there you are. How's it going?
Hey, all you got to do is just act like those old commercials, and you're good to go. I'm doing a lot better than Alabama. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
Rough performance all the way around. How are you feeling, Nick? That's the better question.
Well, look, dude, I'll tell you, and I'll give you my take, and then I want to hear what you think. I feel like the offense isn't creative enough. I've said that week in and week out, win or loss. This game had nothing to do with, I thought the officials did a nice job. I thought the broadcast was good. I thought it was a great environment. Alabama missed a lot of tackles. But, it just comes down to the offense to me. The league is set up for offense. The rules are set up for offense. They want offense. And it just felt like to me, like the wide receivers are never open, rarely. Jahmyr Gibbs is awesome. The guy's going to end up being a superstar in the NFL. I hope he ends up on the Ravens because they're my favorite team. And Bryce Young's, not 100%, but you know what? He does Bryce Young things. I just wish that we could see a little bit of Jalen Milroe. I wish that we had a Wildcat or some different stuff. And then this was the fact that they lost, and it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the season plays out. They'll be ready for Auburn. Trust me. They'll wax Auburn, but next week, I don't know what to think. I don't know who's going to show up, to be honest with you.
Well, it's kind of like we've said all year. It feels like that Alabama doesn't rise to the occasion when they're challenged. And it doesn't matter really what that challenge is. The big question marks that we've had throughout the year, the penalties, the being able to play on the road, the being able to play disciplined, the lack of intensity, the lack of focus. It's like we keep challenging the players on a lot of this stuff, and you're not seeing any improvement. And I do think that the previous caller made a great point. I think at this in time, when you've consistently seen these issues for multiple seasons, then it becomes something structurally that you're doing within your program that's the problem.
Right.
And with any great program, the downfall typically happens when a program, a dynasty, quote unquote, is unable to make adjustments. And whether that be to the new styles of college football or the ever-changing landscape, or whether it be NIL or transfer portal or whatever else that it ends up being, the lack of adaptability is what will get anybody. And Nick Saban has done such a phenomenal job for a decade and a half now of being able to make changes where he needs to make them to keep Alabama top. The problem that I see right now is those changes are no longer being made. Now, granted, the transfer portal, they look like they're having a ton of success there. They're pulling in a lot of impact players, or guys you would expect to be impact players. Recruiting, they're currently number one in recruiting, so it's not like that's really an issue. They've obviously adjusted pretty well to the NIL landscape. but there is something that they're not adapting to. And, maybe they're having as tough of a time as I am wrapping my mind around what that might possibly be. But Nick Saban has talked about trying to change the mentality or the approach and how he coaches his players, because it's just a different mentality than it was, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Maybe you need to go back to the old way, because I'll tell you right now, it doesn't seem like the adjustments that have been made in order to pull these players to a point where they take pride in living up to a standard that has been created for a decade and a half now. You're just no longer seeing that.
Right.
Guys, they want to. This is not a lack of want to from any of these players. It's just, I don't think that for whatever reason, whether it's not being demanded or it's guys, it being demanded and guys just not wanting to put in the effort, or not the effort, but the correct approach to do it the right way, you're not seeing these guys live up to a standard that's been set for, almost over a decade and a half now, as far as, doing the little things that you need to do in order to have success on Saturdays. And that's where you're seeing this whole thing start to fall apart.
Right. Yeah. And the other part of it, and I mentioned this as well, is that this is the toughest road schedule. I mean, this is like an NFL road schedule this year. They have the toughest road schedule of any team in the league. I mean, just because they're playing 5 teams that could beat them on the road in a hostile environment. I mean, like there's no Missouris on there. There's no at Vanderbilt. This isn't Ole Miss with 3 wins. I mean, this is one of the best Ole Miss teams you're going to play, right? LSU and Death Valley. I mean, it's like that. There's been years where they could get by not playing their best in some of these road games because the teams weren't there was just certain games where you didn't have to get up for 5 games, right? I think that factors in as well. Like there just isn't this schedule doesn't allow them to have, a bad week.
No, I agree with that completely. And I do think that, if you had the Missouris and the Vanderbilts, on the schedule, that would certainly help. You would have a better chance of going undefeated. If you didn't have Texas, even though they won that game, you would have had a better chance going into the year of going undefeated. But at the same time, I think that only goes so far, because it's not like it was a week after week kind of issue where you started getting issues in the 3rd and 4th, road game of the year.
Right.
They played some of their worst football of the year, even though they played terrible on the road pretty much every week.
Yeah, right. You're right.
Than,
and this was an off week.
This
came off of a bye too.
Right. Yeah. And Nick Saban had said before the game, and we probably should have listened to him a lot more. You don't exactly know how a team's going to respond after a bye week. But my problem is this: you never have seen that really be too much of an issue. Nothing that stands out in your mind during the Nick Saban era. Why would it be an issue now? And to me, that speaks to, it's not that Alabama has a bad culture. I mean, you look at Texas A&M, you look at, Florida State while Jimbo Fisher was there as well, ironically enough. Like, you can tell bad cultured programs, right? So it's not that issue. There's something there that's keeping these players from playing up to their ability, because going into this year, Mick, to me, this was one of the best Nick Saban teams on paper that I've ever seen. From a defensive, you had pass rushers for days, future first round picks. You had a steady, solid, deep group of interior defensive linemen. You had experienced linebackers. You had guys all over the back half of your defense who you really liked. And were veteran, players. You had 2 safeties decide to come back for their senior years, and Jordan Battle and DeMarco Helms. And yet, that side of the football, reigning Heisman Trophy winner, add the best running back out of the transfer portal, 5 stars, bring in Jermaine Burton, that receiver, who was one of the top transfer portal receivers, Cameron Latou, experience, the offensive line. My point here is that both sides of football, across the board, phenomenal talent. You get both coordinators back. When's the last time that happened? That was supposed to play in Alabama's favor or advantage this year compared to a lot of other teams that lost coordinators.
Right.
All of this continuity. And I think maybe the problem is that the continuity was from a pretty poor football team, right?
Yeah.
The guys who maybe weren't doing it the right way last year, and maybe they had a tougher time breaking some of those habits. But I think there is something to be said about certain players who don't, and it's not just players, it's coaches as well. I think nowadays it feels like Nick Saban's probably asking rather than demanding.
Yeah, that could be it.
it might sound crazy.
No.
I know that, everybody's in blame Nick Saban or blame Alabama mode. It's the world's coming to an end and all this. But I will say, it feels like every week, and he kind of got up there and said the same thing in his post-game press conference. We didn't execute. That lies on me. The play. No one feels worse about this than the players. At the same time, though, that's fine. They can feel bad all they want to. I feel bad for them.
Right.
What are you doing to remedy the situation? Because in the past, this feeling of loss that an Alabama team would suffer would really rally the troops. I mean, and it wasn't a matter of wanting to do better. It's we're going to do better.
Right.
This is unacceptable.
Yeah.
And you aren't seeing those kind of demands. It's more of a, hey, guys, can we maybe get it together? We really need to try to get it together. In the past, it was not a matter of I hope we do. It's we're going to.
Right.
And I don't know where the disconnect's happening, but it's happening somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, and it could be the transfer portal because
I think NIL has a lot to do with it.
Yeah,
as well.
and NIL too. I mean, like you're dealing with parents. I mean, guys like Drew Sanders, good player, got the start, got hurt. Would have been a key player on this team. Ups and transfers to Arkansas. I mean, like, kind of shocked everybody. Well, I'm not getting enough playing time here. Whatever. I mean, like no, dude, you would have got a lot of playing time. They even said that. You would have, but and it's you lose a lot of the depth that you have. Because of the transfer portal. Guys that are going to go other places and I think that's tough. I think there's a lot more teeth. Look, the way that the system was set up before, you had to really build. You had to build with recruits, and then it was more set up like a college. Hey, you're here for 4 years, right? Now it's the Wild West, man. I mean, it's like, look. You could literally go out and get players off of other teams and build an entire roster based off of that every year. I'm just wondering, it is having the number one recruiting class of freshmen. Is it as important as it used to be?
Well, I think that if you're going to miss on some of your transfer portal guys like Alabama has, I mean, when you look at the receiving core from an overall perspective, who scares you as a defensive coordinator? Like, which player do you look at in Alabama's passing game and you say, that guy's a huge problem? Ja'Cory Brooks is a good player, and he had almost 100 yards tonight on, I think it was maybe 7 or 8 catches. He had 17 targets. So it's not – I mean, if you can't get, at least catch, a little bit under half of those, get up close to, 100 yards when you're getting 17 targets, that's an issue within itself. Ja'Cory Brooks has been their most consistent option, don't get me wrong. I still think he's been a good player. Do you look at him and you say, I'm terrified of him? This guy's going to win matchups no matter what we do. He's pretty much unstoppable. No, you don't do that. You don't do that with Jermaine Burton. You don't do that with some of these freshmen. And, you talk about, losing depth and guys leaving. I don't think you could lose much more depth than Georgia did, especially on defense from last year's team, right? And that was depth leaving, starters leaving, which, moved everybody up the depth chart. But and that was first-round draft picks and stuff. This year, it's like Kirby Smart. I think Nick Saban still holds himself to the same standard that he has always held himself to.
Right.
What I question a little bit, and this is I don't know, not saying that this is the case. I don't think we've reached that point yet. But is he holding everybody else around him to the same standard that he's always held them to? I can't answer that question. I wouldn't be able to tell you that question. But it just, like I said, there's some kind of disconnect here, and it's causing issues that if it was losing in a different way, then I think that fans and people could accept it a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But when you're losing the same kind of ways, like Bryce Young, and granted, was this due to it being a scripted drive that Alabama had a lot of success on their opening drive? And then once they kind of have to go off script and really start calling plays, in real time, that's where they struggled? Or was it Bryce Young, for whatever reason, did get shook a little bit after that, interception? And from there, that's where things really started to fall apart. Like if he doesn't throw that interception, Are we still talking about them having the same problem with the scripted or the unscripted plays after the fact?
Right.
Or are, is there a lot more confidence oozing? Because I think if they score a touchdown there, it's a completely different ballgame. I think everybody would agree. I mean, it took them forever to actually put a touchdown on the board. And if you do it on your opening drive, and I think the defense, especially in the first half, they were playing pretty good football.
Yeah, right.
I think they could have held, Jaden Daniels and that LSU offense to a 3-and-out, and then you start getting some energy and some momentum going. But I don't know. It just felt like that when you looked at everything. The penalties, was it cleaned up a little bit? Sure, it was 9. Is that better than 15 or 17? Sure. That's still not good. So I wouldn't say that's a win. It made incremental improvement, I guess.
Right.
Tackling on defense, you got to be able to tackle on defense. They couldn't do that. The turnover battle, they only once, but they got 0 once again on defense. So you lose the turnover battle. You're still committing penalties. It's like they keep losing these games in the same kind of way. And it's like, at what point, whatever Nick Saban and the coaching staff is trying to do, whatever it is, isn't working. So my question is, I think if these were easy answers, it would get corrected. But It's not easy answers.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
That, at a certain point, it's a tough scene for Alabama tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what changes are made. Chris, put that back up there, the drive chart. You just had it up there. I want to say this before we get off here. But, okay, so they have the interception, right, which was totally on Bryce. And then they go punt, right? All those possessions started like deep in their own territory. That doesn't mean you don't have to – you have to throw the football. I mean, watching them throw the ball on first and second down over and over again was what I mean by not creative. You got to run the ball. I mean, and sometimes they don't do it.
I'll tell you right now, it's a lack of trust. And I always say this, and this is not a lack of trust from Nick Saban. This is a lack of trust from Bill O'Brien.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't trust the offensive ability to move the football consistently on the ground. He didn't trust the offensive line to create movement. And what did you see to start the second half? To me, based off of Nick Saban's comments going into the half, and then the way that they approached coming out, it was like, Bill, I don't care what the down and distance situation is. You're going to run the football pretty much on every single play. Because Alabama was just hammering at that first drive. They mixed in a couple of passes, and you saw some success, but you also saw a lot of negative plays. And it's like, it also could be Bill's way of saying, hey, guys, y'all want me to keep hammering the football? This is what happens. Now, there was some success, and they did move the football, but it was a lot of – and that's going to happen with a Jahmyr Gibbs style of run game. You're going to get a lot of plays stopped at the line of scrimmage or negative plays, and then you get a home run. But at the same time, it is a huge problem right now. Bryce Young, I've heard people bring up, using Jalen Milroe and having some packages for him. Take out Bryce Young's name and insert Tom Brady or insert Aaron Rodgers or Peyton Manning. Hey, let's take Peyton Manning off the field because we're really not getting anything going here offensively, or we haven't this season. We're not doing as well. That's just. With Bryce Young being the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, I understand the logic of, hey, I understand that maybe, a Jalen Milroe style of player or his ability with his legs would maybe throw defenses off and maybe, create a spark. But it's also like, man, I mean, this cat's been the best player, one of the best players on this team for multiple seasons now. Are you really taking the football out of his hands? Is that really the solution? And if your answer to that question is no in your own mind, I can't blame you for coming to that conclusion. So I understand why nothing like that has really happened. But at the same time, I also understand that there hadn't been a whole lot of creativity. And if that's not the avenue in which you get it, you've got to figure something else out. It's baffling to me how receivers can't get open. Is that schematic? Is that route concepts with Bill O'Brien? Or is it guys just aren't talented enough? They miss that many times on that many players. Because when you look at how they recruited in the transfer portal, how they were recruited as far as the high school ranks and where guys were ranked coming out of high school, there's no reason that they should have had all these issues. And yet it continues to be a problem week over week, and guys aren't getting open. And I can't for the life of me figure out why.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, could there be that many misses? of, look, they're all 4 and 5 star guys, according to, all the services, but they're not open. So the other thing, and then what's that?
Got, north of 10 players who are ranked inside the top 100 coming out of high school.
Right.
Receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be quite an amazing run if that many missed.
Right. And then, and kind of lastly on that is that they used to take so much pride in blocking.
Yep.
Think about all the receiver screens and, why those worked so well, because they blocked so well. It could be, and I don't even know who the wide receiver coach is. I know you do. I don't.
Coleman Wiggins.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, whose responsibility is that?
Well, and I'll say this. I think that the receivers are who we're talking about, but you can extend this to really any position almost. And I think that you kind of are hitting the nail on the head. The most important part of a wide receiver's position is not blocking. It really isn't. That's not the point. You're not going to sign a guy to a $100 million contract in the NFL at receiver because he blocks well. That's one of the little things. And in the past, all the little things, Alabama's players and coaching staff, but as a collective unit, they took pride in doing the little things right. If you're a defensive lineman and the scheme that is being dialed up means you've got to just eat up a couple of blocks to create an opportunity for your teammate, that's something that guys took pride in. I'm going to do my job to the best of my ability and allow somebody else to make a play. Now, and this might be the NIL world that we live in now, the guy wants to make his own play. He doesn't want to block for somebody else because block is not going to get him an endorsement deal.
Right.
Catching, 17 balls in a football game for 216 yards and 4 touchdowns, that'll get you an endorsement deal real quick.
Yeah.
I wonder how Jalen Hyatt's doing after his performance against Alabama a couple weeks ago. I was ventured to say he's doing pretty well.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where everybody's mentality is at, is I don't want to do those things that, is going to put money in somebody else's pocket. I want to put it, and I'm not saying that is the issue. I'm saying that's a potential.
You said it could be. I got you.
Alabama. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, this team is, and Rick on the message board said this is the most undisciplined team since 2007 for Alabama. I think this is the most undisciplined team, period, that Nick Saban's had. 2007, they won the national championship, right? No, that was his first year. Okay, yeah, maybe it was since 2007. I don't know, but because they won in 2009. But it's hard for me to remember that far back. This team kind of reminds me of 2010, just because they have so much talent and they are underachieving. They've underachieved. I mean, unless everything falls their way, they have underachieved, and they're going to look back on this and be disappointed because they didn't accomplish the goal that they gave themselves at the beginning of the season. Period.
This will be the next Saturday will be the key difference, or excuse me, the key comparison in how 2022 stacks up to 2010. And the reason being is Alabama didn't fully fall out of it really completely. I mean, they already had 2 losses, but when they lost in the Iron Bowl, Cam Newton and those guys were able to come back in an epic fashion, and now Auburn's going to a national championship. That next game, it wasn't an SEC championship. They didn't participate in that. It was the Capital One Bowl against Michigan State.
I was there. Yeah, they killed them.
They were pissed off for an entire month.
Yeah.
And they took it out on Michigan State. And I mean, there was as someone covering Alabama, I mean, there was almost pity there for the other team.
Yeah.
Now that they've almost officially been knocked out of the college football playoff race, if that doesn't bother some of these guys and they come out flat against Ole Miss, I don't think you can really take the comparison, because I really think that the attitude that Alabama displayed in that Capital One Bowl, they carried it over into the off season and into the next season. And if you get more of the same of guys not really caring and hey, we're out of it, let's just call it, let's throw in the towel, I mean, then you're not really creating any sort of momentum for next year. And so I really would like to see them bounce back and have a strong performance, even though it might not mean anything as far as the national championship in 2022. I think, this could be a potential problem carrying over even in 2023. So I would like to see them bounce back pretty strong next week against Ole Miss. I just don't know if it's going to happen because it's been a lot of the same issues for quite a while now.
Yeah. Well, Clint, look, you and I will get together Monday night on Monday Night QB, and we'll kind of just take a breath and probably talk more about this game and talk a little bit about Ole Miss. I think you nailed it. I'm not expecting anything different than what I saw tonight. I don't think Ole Miss is as physical as LSU. But I just expect penalties and mistakes, and some good plays as well, and some exciting stuff, and it being close at the end. That's what I'm predicting. So,
and that's can you think that I would world? I thought Nick Saban would ride off into the sunset without someone ever speaking the words that you just spoke, which is, I expect an Alabama football team to step on the field next week and to commit penalties and to be undisciplined and potentially get beat a second time in a row. Like, that is not just a possibility. A lot of people, that is now, they've done it for so long, it's now the expectation.
Yep.
That is the problem, Nick, but I can't disagree with you.
Yep. Well, Clint, thanks for coming on, brother. Appreciate it, man.
Absolutely, man. It was good talking to you, and we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, and don't forget, guys, you can check out Clint every day on BamaInsider.com. He's on the message board. He's covering the team. BamaInsider.com, now part of On3, the new world order of team coverage. I promise you won't be disappointed. And for $10, you get an entire year. That includes the recruiting with Andrew Bone and all of the On3 people throughout the country that are great. Joseph Hastings, Jimmy Stein. We got a lot more coming as well. Guys, give us a thumbs up. Hit the bell if you enjoyed the show tonight. I really appreciated all you guys. I can't tell you how much it means to kind of get together with you on these nights, to watch everyone kind of duke it out with the trolls and the message board. Got to get a chuckle out of you guys. The callers are great. And, and the thing about sports is sometimes you lose. And that was the case today for Alabama. They came up short, but our show was a hit, and I appreciate that. So thank you for all the super chats. And don't forget, Monday night, 7 o'clock, we'll be on with Monday Night Quarterback. I'll have Clint on. You'll actually be able to see his face. Joseph Hastings talking recruiting. Jimmy Stein will be on. Tuesday, Andrew Bone will have his recruiting show. Wednesday, actually, don't forget Nick Saban. Anytime Nick Saban's press conferences come out, we have them on the channel, including when he spoke tonight to the media after the game. And that is throughout the week. The players, all that stuff's on our site, man. We try to keep you updated. The tailgate show is going to be from 6 to 8 Friday at Floor Bama. So if you're in the area, come by and say hi. Jersey Dolphins, man, thank you. Roll Tide to you. And congratulations to the Tigers. They won the game. They played a hell of a game today. They didn't get the crazy officiating. This was just, you know what? Brian Kelly rolled the dice and he came up snake eyes, at the end of the game. And I thought it was an entertaining game. I thought the LSU crowd was good, and it was a fun game to watch. Obviously, I wanted it to turn out differently, but congratulations to the Tigers, because that was it's a pretty big win for them. And for Alabama moving forward, we'll see what happens. I think we'll know what this team's made of when they play Ole Miss. Are they going to pack it up, or are they going to go? They're going to go out there and and find themselves. Special thanks, Chris Daughtry behind the scenes, Kyle Henderson, and our entire Bama Insider crew. I'm Mick Gillispie. Hey, this does it. We'll talk to you again after the game next Saturday. It'll be a little bit earlier because it's a 2:30 game. But thanks for hanging out with us, guys, and Roll Tide.